Okay, we're starting now.
Okay, great. So welcome everyone to the Tuesday night, February 16th, 2021 meeting of the Community Advisory Committee of EBCE. Can I have roll call, please?
Yes. Member Eldridge,
Present.
Member Laundry,
Present.
Member Pacheco, Member Padilla,
Present.
Vice Chair Frank,
Present.
Chair Sutter.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Great. The next item is public comments. Do we have any speaker slips? This is for anyone to address us about anything that's not on the agenda tonight.
Hold on one second.
I see one raised hand.
We have one raised hand from Alita Dupree. I will allow Alita Dupree to speak.
Okay, so the other thing I think that we have in the past, we're able and we're going to take people as raised hands, but then don't they have to fill something out afterwards? So everything's kind of official.
Yes. Normally we complete a speaker slip online by visiting the public meetings page at EBCE prior to the start of the meeting. For those that are calling from a landline, please email your comments to cob@ecbe.org before the meeting. All speakers must sign up before the item is called. If you you can use your raised hand feature when your name is called. I will unmute your microphone when it's your turn to speak. You'll have 3 minutes to make your comment. The chair may elect to shorten the time to allow for more speakers. If you're calling in by phone, press #9 or use the raised hand feature.
Great. So I think Adrian, we've been a little bit more relaxed on whether or not there's a speaker slip in advance. So Alita, we've heard from you often. So I think Adrian's going to unmute you, but if after you talk, you can please ensure that you fill out a speaker slip officially if possible. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Chair Mary Sutter and members. Alita Dupree for the record. My pronouns are she and her. I'm actually out walking in a parking lot. Been doing so for the last hour and 15 minutes. So I'm not near a speaker slip, but I can do that later. Thank you. As we go forward with this work of EBC in the new year, I want us to be aspirational. I continue to advocate the importance of renewable energy and its potential for affordability and resilience. I'm looking at the issues that are happening with this really severely cold weather in the middle of the country. To me, it only underscores the need more for renewables and storage and local development, because some of these facilities are fossil fuel and nuclear and they're not able to run. Now, it is true that there are also some wind turbines that are frozen, but I think that that can be easily solved by planning for de-icing. I believe in the importance of living better electrically. I've been doing so for like the last 20 years. Some of the greatest restaurants in the world have all electric kitchens. So therefore, it is proof that chefs can make great food. I take great pride in my grilling on electric grills because the heat is clean. It doesn't affect the flavor of my food negatively. So certainly development and encouraging electrification for our heavier loads. It's fine if you have solar and wind and connect to that for your lighting and computers and things like that. But if you're still running gas stoves and water heaters and space heating, the potential is greater to tap in to the abundance of renewables if those heavy loads can be electrified. I use about 30 kilowatt hours a day, all electric. And so not everyone can afford a car, but if we can get battery powered buses out there and a renewable energy BART, well, we're on our way. Thank you.
Thank you, Alita. Do we have any more public speakers? Adrian?
1 second. We have no more public speakers.
Okay, great. And I can see your Excel file, Adrian. So you may want to not show screens or something like that anymore.
Right, let me stop share.
Thank you. Great. So our next item is item C3. It's approval of minutes. And I think everybody needs to realize we have 2 months worth of meetings that we're looking at and approving tonight. Anna Olivia, I think you were the only one not here last in January. January, we had unusual circumstances and we failed to have any backup tape on the CAC. So I requested that staff not include any notes. We also didn't have a quorum, so we didn't do anything in terms of there were no actions taken. But the reason that there is not even any more notes is because we didn't have anything to back it up. So we're really looking at the approval of the minutes from December 14th. Does anybody have any comments? If you can.
I move approval of the December minutes.
Great. Do we have a second?
I second Cynthia Landry.
Great. So we have for the December meeting, and actually, well, we'll deal with January after this. Can we have a roll call vote, please, Adrian? And well, let me ask first, any comments, any changes? Nope. Adrian, roll call vote, please. This is for approval of the December meeting.
Yes, Member Eldridge,
Yes.
Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Pacheco, not here. Member Padilla,
Yes.
Vice Chair Funk,
Yes.
Chair Sutter.
Yes. I'd also like to entertain a motion for the January 19th meeting notes, given that they're something there. It's just very small, but I'd like us to take a look at that and comment and approve that if possible.
Wait a second.
We don't have a first yet.
Oh,
I move approval. This is Monica.
Monica, do we have a second?
I'll second Cynthia Landry.
Great. Any comments? Nope. Adrian, roll call vote, please.
Member Eldridge,
Yes.
Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Pacheco, Member Padilla,
Yes.
Vice Chair Funk,
Yes.
Chair Sutter.
Yes. Thank you all. Next item is C4. It's the chair report. I have 2 things that I want to report to the group tonight. The first one is one that we have had discussions about bringing back to our CAC, which is the Aramis project. Cynthia, one of the members, in case folks don't know, has done a great job of following up on this and keeping me apprised. Aramis project has not yet gone to the Board of Supervisors for the county. So we're waiting to have any discussion with the CAC until we hear the outcome of that particular vote. They're supposed to be going, it's supposed to be on the early March timeline. And so depending upon the results, if it's passed, we'll bring it into our March meeting for the CAC. If it's defeated, I'm not sure that there's a whole lot we would want to talk about. So I want to let people know and be aware of that. The second thing is the CAC applications have closed as of yesterday. And we had a good turnout. We had 26 different applications. And the thing that I'm really pleased about, not only the numbers, but given where they are. If you remember last time, the policy for CAC seats got adjusted. So we will have 5 different areas geographically that we're looking for representation on the CAC. And we had sufficient number of applicants in each of those 5 areas that if the applications go through and they pass the process that they need to go through and they accept, we'll have a full CAC across all of the geographies. And I think we also should have all alternates. We have 5 alternates, 1 per area potential. And there's enough in each of those areas to where if they're not chosen as the CAC, they may be chosen as the alternate. So I'm really pleased with that. I can't give you anything more about the timing of it. That's a question, outstanding question that I have, but hopefully I'll be able to bring something back in March. I seriously doubt that we're going to be put anybody on the board in March. Might be not till April. The other thing being is we have 2 at-large CAC seats that we're going to go through the mayor's appointment. And Nick, do you have any knowledge? Have those discussions been occurring to bring any CAC seats from the at-large?
No, you know, we've really been waiting to get the applicants to see the numbers that we had. So once we get the applicants, I think I would frankly expect this to sort of happen in 2 steps. So the first step would be the JPA board members would take action, and then it may take a little bit longer to have the at-large positions appointed by the Council of Mayors. From a quorum perspective, it's okay because until they're appointed, they don't count against your quorum.
Yeah, no, that I remembered. I just wasn't sure about the timing. But once the board does move, it's possible we're going to have 10 folks again. So it'll be a larger CAC. That is it. And so I'm going to move us on to item C6. Jane, I guess I see you have your, yep.
I just wanted to add one thing and just, kind of acknowledging and expressing some gratitude for the current CAC members and board members and staff for getting the word out on these applications. I think this is the most applicants we've ever had, and that's really a reflection of the efforts of the community and staff and board members. So just want to express some appreciation there.
Yep, I agree. Thank you. And at this point,
Mary,
yeah,
Monica, just one quick question. For those of us who have been on for a while, how do we find out when our term ends? I'm not sure I know.
How about I will look into that and I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Alex DiGiorgio is kind of our new point person at EBCE about all things CAC application wise. And so I think he's actually on as an attendee. And so Alex, I'm just to give you a heads up, I'm going to be following up with you. And so we can let the board members understand when they are, when their term is up. So I don't have the answer to that right now, but I'll figure it out and let you know. So I'm going to move us on to item C5, which is the 2021 Bright Choice Power Content Procurement Floor. This is an informational item for us. So we'll have discussion, but we won't be taking any particular action. Nick, who's presenting on this?
Jim Dorrance.
Yes, I am here. So I'm going to speak to kind of the particulars of the staff memo here. So just high level, what this is we're setting the renewable procurement floor for the content of Bright Choice for the current year for 2021. The background is that at the April 2020 board meeting that occurred last year, we amended the power content procurement guidelines for Bright Choice. And what we did is that we established that the carbon-free content would be at parity with PG&E through the carbon-free allocation. We're really establishing a way to compare ourselves to PG&E with our renewable content for Bright Choice. And so we established a way to do this, a methodology where we set the renewable floor for Bright Choice to be 5% greater than PG&E's previous year renewable content. And so the example for 2020, so the renewable content for Bright Choice in 2020 was 5% greater than the forecast from 2019, from PG&E's 2019 forecast. And so what we're presenting today is that the Bright Choice renewable content floor for 2021, the current year that we're in now. And so using the same methodology where we go through and use these advice letters that PG&E posts, and within that they have a table in there that they call the renewable net short. And it's something that most load serving entities use. And it's a way that to kind of declare your renewable content per year. And so it's forecasts for the current year and future years, and then it's the actual data from the previous year. And so in looking at this report, we were looking at the actual content from 2020, again, the previous year, and we're setting a floor for Bright Choice that's 5% greater than that. And so in the renewable net short table, PG&E had a renewable content in 2020 of 36.2%. So the Bright Choice content floor for the renewable content is 5% higher, and it's going to be 41.2% RPS. For context, the previous year's 2020's content floor was 39.5%. And in the data we have, it looks like that's going to exceed PG&E's 2020 content. So the methodology, I believe, is a valid approach. And so the staff memo is, again, to bring in the particulars of this methodology, but also to state the Bright Choice procurement floor for the current year for 2021. And just a reminder that this only applies to Bright Choice. The Brilliant 100 and Renewable 100 plans aren't affected by this. And this is only speaking to the renewable content of Bright Choice. And so, of course, if there's any questions about that, I'm free to answer them.
Do we have any public comments on this area, Adrian? Public questions?
We do not, hold on one second. Yes, we do. Jessica Tovar and Alita Dupree. I will unmute.
Great. I also noted Alita hand never went down, so I wasn't sure if it was just because she wanted to have it up or not. But when she gets on, we can ask.
Okay. Jessica Tovar is unmuted.
Hi, everyone. Jessica Tovar, East Bay Clean Power Alliance. So one of the things that I guess you use is last year's PG&E renewable content to figure out, EBCE's current year for renewables. And we're curious about, if the policy for East Bay Community Energy's renewable content to be 5% higher than PG&E for, based on the past year. What happens if PG&E actually increases their renewable content more than 5% in the last year? I don't know if that question makes sense.
So
that's it.
I'm happy to answer that, Mary, if you'd like me to.
Yes, please do.
So the reason we set it based on the previous year as opposed to the current year is we have no way of actually knowing exactly what the current year is going to be. And so it is possible that the current year could be higher than the level we set, but we catch up with that because next year we use this year's rate. So we're a year behind, but we're always going to be 5%. So over, a time horizon of 3-5 years, we are insured to have more renewable content. And that 5% is, generally speaking, been a reasonable buffer. PG&E has not jumped from, year to year by more than 5%. But it's one of the challenges that we face when we have to compare ourselves to PG&E. It's sort of a bit of the same challenge we have when we try to deliver lower cost rates. We can't exactly forecast for the next year exactly where their rates are going to be because there's a whole suite of factors relating to the PCIA, but also their underlying costs that play in. And so that's also one of the reasons why it's challenging financially to plan as well.
Thank you, Nick. Alita, are you unmuted, and did you actually want to talk to this item?
I'm unmuting Alita Dupree now.
Alita?
Okay, I'm unmuted now. Thank you, Chair Mary Sutter and members. Alita Dupree for the record, she and her. Yes, I did intend to speak, and this time I was able to fill out the speaker card because I'm inside now. I think this plan is reasonable. It's important to have a sense of predictability when making plans. Kind of call it indexing, if you will. Certainly, we want to ensure that we think of this as a floor, as I would like to see us do more than 41%. I know some agencies are 50 to 60%. At the same time, the value proposition must be upheld, because if we go too high with renewables and buy more expensive product, we risk not having a value proposition, and we don't want people to leave, because people are price sensitive, and we want to keep our customers at EBCE, because 41% is a lot better than 36, and some utilities in America are pretty close to nothing. So I think we're doing a lot better than a lot of places. So I would support this, and with the admonishment to you all that you take advantage of as many opportunities as possible to raise that renewable number and keep the product cheaper than PG&E's default. Thank you.
Thank you, Alita. Adrian, do we have any other public?
We have no other speakers.
Okay, thank you. Anyone on the CAC? You want to raise your hands? Do you have questions, comments? I'll give it a minute and then I'll move to the next item.
No, Mary, Chair Sutter, I'm having a hard time raising my hand here, but I would like to ask a question, please.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, yes. If you could remind me, we have 58, I believe, 58.8, if my math is correct, of other power, energy power components, and I know some of it is large hydro. Would you remind me again what the other components are besides the large hydro, please?
Jim, is that something that you have at your fingertips?
Yeah, I'm not sure on that exact. So, when we're talking about the current year, these are our forecasted positions. So the 58.8%, I think, is close to what it's going to be. And so the majority of the content is going to be the renewable for the current year, 41.2% at the least, at a minimum. And the large hydro that we get from the PG&E allocation, which, depending on the amount of, hydrologic generation, it could be 10%, it could be a little bit higher. And so our renewable carbon-free portfolio, could be about there, and the rest of the portfolio would be actually grid unspecified power. And so we'd have the large hydro from the PG&E allocation, we would have the renewable content, then we would have grid unspecified. And I'll let Nick and Howard, if they want to speak to that as well.
Cynthia, does that answer your question?
One more further clarification. The grid unspecified, that means we don't know what's in that energy portfolio? Is that what that means? The unspecified?
Yeah, so when we think about kind of our content, there's the power content label, there's the energy we buy. What it means, in my opinion, it means unpurchased content. So we have a certain amount of retail sales, and approximately 55 to 60% of that is going to be specific purchases, be it large hydro or renewable, and the rest of that is going to be just basically content that's delivered from the grid that, if you want to look at it in this way, it could be solar during the daytime, it could be other products at nighttime, but it's just whatever grid power is available. But kind of in the world of power content label, it doesn't really work on that dynamic. So we call it grid unspecified, but in reality is just unpurchased content of our retail sales. I know that might be more confusing, but that's how I look at it.
Okay, does that mean that it's whatever is available on the grid to fill that power need? Is that what you're referring to?
I think you can say that, but I don't believe that's the whole picture. So again, we're talking about kind of content. So in reality, when we turn our light bulbs on in our houses, you're getting generation that's dispatched to you from the Cal ISO. We are buying content for our power content label that is kind of an annual snapshot of the megawatt hours that we purchase from specific sources. And for retail sales that we haven't purchased any specific sources, then it is just considered grid unspecified California content. And what that is just kind of a catch-all for those megawatt hours that didn't have a specific source that was purchased for them for the power content label. I know this one can go on for a while. It's a really confusing mechanism, the difference between kind of content and the real world electrons that flow to individual light bulbs.
Okay, well, let me ask you this last question, and it is my last clarification. Could that grid unspecified include nuclear energy as an example?
I mean,
Or
again,
gas.
using that example, yes, a grid unspecified would include nuclear. It would also include solar and wind and the renewable energy that's dispatched on the grid as well.
Well, so Jim, I don't think that's actually practically speaking accurate, because nuclear is a specified source. So it is reported on a power content one way or the other. So when you buy unspecified, it is for the resources that are not specified. Practically speaking, unspecified for California purposes reflects natural gas.
Okay, so there might be some natural gas backfill, but not nuclear energy because it's specified. Okay, I just want to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Anna Olivia?
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you for this presentation. I really appreciate it. I just want to say that it's really great that EBC is offering more renewables than PGE. This is why community choice is here. It's one of the things it's great to see Bright Choice getting cleaner. I'm wondering if there is a way that we can, are you looking at making that ramp up every year so that our default product is getting cleaner as time goes on, or do you plan on keeping it pegged to PG&E?
So our trajectory is to maintain a PG&E peg. We're maintaining a PG&E peg, I would say, likely through the next 5 years, but we do have 100% target for 2030. So at some point we're going to we'll switch from the PG&E peg to the trajectory for 2030. That, I think, largely starts to occur when the projects we have contracted for, the 550 megawatts we already have in place, and then the next round of contracts we will contract for, when they start to come online is when you start to see kind of a significant lift in our renewables content, putting us in position to get to our 2030 goal.
Thank you for that. And how much do you have an idea of how much new renewables that we're going to be looking at, especially new and local, as opposed to new and far away that still has to travel across power lines?
So for new in an absolute sense, I think our target for 2030 is at a minimum 70 or 75% long-term contracts. So those would fit into the sort of new that we have caused to be built. And we're probably, we're probably on path with the next round of contracts to be what, about 50, 60% of the way there. Howard?
Of our current RFO process, is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
with what we have. Yeah, so and I think in terms of local, the major local constraints are the constraint of the resource itself and the costs of the resources. So, I think we're going to be soon finding us in a position, assuming we're able to get at least one large Altamont wind project in our portfolio. One more, so we'd have two. We do have a share of the Aramis solar project. So presuming the county approves that, that there just are not significant additional opportunities for large scale local renewables. So then we will start focusing on smaller scale projects, like the project, our Resilient Home project, which, is a lot of consumers, but it's not a lot of megawatts. So 2,000, 3,000 customers, but only 5 megawatts of capacity in our program. I would expect we would more likely to be looking at local standalone battery storage projects because the project footprints are a lot smaller. That's the Vistra Oakland Clean Energy project is one example.
Thank you, Nick. And Olivia, any other questions? Nope, if not, maybe you can put your hand down because you're on mute.
Sorry, trouble with that. Thank you.
Oh, you muted yourself again.
I do not have any further questions. I was just thinking
Okay, thank you.
after that.
I see no further hands raised, so I'll give it a second and then we'll move on to the next item. All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to item, and I don't know the item number. It is item C6. Staff's going to tell us about the mid-year status of the annual budget. And I'm assuming that's you, Howard.
Actually,
Jason?
that is Jason.
Jason, great.
Hi, hello, how are you? Okay, so mid-year annual budget or the budget report compares a couple of things. It compares where we are relative to the budget that was approved by the board in June, and it also adds an update for the second half of the year. And basically what these results show is that electricity sales are about 8.3% above what we were originally estimating in the budget. That's 33.5 million or so, due to about 19 million delayed payment on a PCIA uncollectible balancing account, also known as the PUBA. But we're also seeing higher energy costs, 14.7 million, and approximately 12 million is due to the specifically higher than expected temperatures that we saw between the end of August and the beginning of October. And that was, there was a massive heat wave and that kind of drove prices up. And just a small amount is we believe due to projections for the second half of the year. Overhead is about $600,000, $700,000 under budgeted costs. And this is due to cost savings that we're seeing in marketing and operations primarily, as well as with some delayed staffing needs. We had been approved for a significant number of staff, and we have not yet filled those positions. Interest costs are slightly above budget, about $37,000. That's just because we've had some additional interest charges with postings of letters of credit to counterparties. Overall spending is about 3.6% or 13.8 million more than budgeted, but this is primarily as driven by the higher expected energy costs in the late summer of 2020. And this report has no significant fiscal impact on the agency. If we could go to the, Adrian, if maybe we could look at the attachment. Oh, what? Sorry. Yeah, back one page, please. One more thing. The net position, which is the bottom line, that looks like a large number that's 655% above. But as stated earlier, that's primarily due to the unadjusted PUBA. And so, Adrian, if you could please go to the next slide. Thank you. And so this provides a snapshot of the highlights that I just kind of pointed out. Again, just to kind of reiterate, that large increase in sales is primarily due to collected PUBA payments that are still in balancing. The cost of energy increase from the August to October heat wave, which then gets us to at the very bottom, the net change in position.
So thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
I have a really quick question.
Sure.
The fiscal year 2021 budget is it July to June, right? I can never remember if we're July 1 to
July
June.
1.
So
Correct.
that's
July
a full
1
year's worth of
June 30.
budget. The mid-year also appears to be a full year's worth of budget, but I'm trying to understand, we've only spent half the year. Did you then take half of the year from July to December and then kind of forecast the other half of the year? Is that what that number is?
That's essentially correct. Yes, we have one half of the year that is actualized costs and revenues, and that's through December 31. And then from January 1 through June 30, we've updated our original estimates that were in the budget.
And are there any of these that you feel are highly variable to where the last half of the year could affect what we're seeing here in terms large swings, I guess is my question.
Not significantly, no, other than the eventual repayment of that PUBA money that we've collected. Now, there's some discussion on the timing of that, but it is, if we do end up retaining that difference at the end of the fiscal year, it will definitely need to be paid back in the following years.
I would just add on two other comments there. One is you asked, are there line items that are particularly variable? Cost of energy is very variable. We have a significant amount of our energy hedged, but even the smaller percentages of our portfolio that are unhedged are highly volatile, right? And we're seeing that we're seeing some of that in California, but as you're seeing across the country right now, Texas in particular, highly susceptible to variability based off of weather and other issues. So of all the line items in our budget that is variable, our cost of energy line item is by far where the greatest risk lies for us. So that's the one thing I'd highlight. The other thing is related to the PUBA, which is, I know is always the PCI is always a pretty complicated topic. The PUBA is the PCI under collection balancing account. the purpose of that is basically the PCIA was capped in terms of its increase year to year. And from a regulatory perspective, that cap was in place. And then there is anything that should be collected over and above that cap is put into the PUBA, this under collection balancing account. And that PUBA still has to be repaid by load serving entities, by CCAs over time. And at this stage, the variability that Jason noted was basically based on the timing of the PUBA and when you repay that. We actually have pretty good certainty on that now, whereas in the June budget, when we went forward with it and got approval of it, there was quite a bit of uncertainty there, just in terms of the timing of when you have to repay that. You know, it could have been sort of real time, you have to pay it and there's no cap. It could have been a repayment over a year. It could have been a repayment over a number of years. And the at least the current understanding is that that repayment will need to be made over 3 years. And so the big driver of this budget right now, as you see it, is better than expected performance, which is good. But the primary driver of that is basically we're deferring payment of PCIA into future periods. So it's not, you know, basically all of the overperformance is based off of that deferral of payment. So our budget's pretty close to where we expected it to be when you take that into account.
Thank you, Howard. First of all, I also wanted to say I appreciate seeing these like this. I know I'd asked for this in the past and I appreciate that. I'm going to switch us around and have CAC members ask first, and then I'll go to the public. This is informational item for us. Monica?
Yeah, I was going to ask a question related to the PUBA. I think Howard kind of answered it. So it seems like it's a liability then that you have to repay over time. It seems odd to put it where it's at here, but I guess that's an accounting thing. My question had to do with I think there was a comment on the bullets of your staff report that talked about a contract that got delayed on a COD, a long-term renewable contract. And because it was delayed, you saw some savings. I don't remember how much, but my question is, is that resource not being replaced with another renewable resource? Or is your assumption that it's just going to go to system energy, non-renewable?
I think that is just it's just a delay in one of our PPAs. So it's, you know, a matter of short timing differential where we had anticipated a PPA coming online, and instead we are, you know, procuring either shorter term renewable energy or spot market pricing, as opposed to, you know, via that long-term resource. So it's really more of a hit to an impact to the current fiscal year as opposed to sort of overall.
And Monica, remember, we don't, you know, cost of renewables get spread over a calendar year, and we're doing this on a fiscal year. So we're likely to see like the benefit be kind of offset in the next FY.
Right. And just one other question. So when we had the big discussion about setting the RPS to be 5% above PG&E's RPS portfolio, I guess we talked about it earlier today. Was that incorporated into this budget already? Were you already assuming that you're going to have a lower RPS than previous years?
Yes, that assumption was baked into the cake.
Okay.
Because we did have the conversation at budget development as well.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Cynthia?
Yes, thank you for this. And it is in a format that's I can understand and anyways, and I like the breakdown. My question is, I see at the top revenue and other sources, investment income. And can you tell me what you mean by investment income? And does that mean you have minus 37.7%? What that means, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So in our bank accounts, we store cash that isn't working at the time in what's called an ICS. It's a credit sweep account, and it's basically a large savings account, and it offers an interest rate of return that fluctuates based on market rates. And it's usually the bank backs it with treasury bonds for that return insurance. And as we see interest rates decline, we had originally budgeted that I believe it was a 0.95% return on just not spending that cash. And we've seen rates drop. They're now around 0.5, 0.6%. And so that's not a loss of money. It's just, we're just not getting as much as we thought we would be from holding cash.
Thank you for the clarification. And overall, it appears to me that we're in a very sound financial position, and but for the increased heat costs from last summer, and also the reconciliation with Puba, we're doing quite well here in my humble opinion. So thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Any other comments from the CAC members? Hearing none. Adrian, do we have any public comments on this item?
We might. I saw that Blair Beekman signed up for this item, but then changed his response. I wasn't sure if Blair wished to speak to this item. If Blair could please raise your.
I do see two hands raised, Blair's and Audrey's.
Yes, I see. I'm going to allow Blair to speak. You are unmuted.
Hi, thank you. Happy February. Blair Beekman here. I think I did not change my admission. I wanted to speak on this item. I never changed it. So thank you for responding. Happy February. I was not, there's this interesting informational item for myself. So thank you. A lot to take in budget-wise. I was interested how PICA, you don't have to pay off the PICA at this time, but it will come back in a few years' time. And I felt this would be an appropriate time to mention that I've been sending letters to yourselves asking about your the reports from October that try to describe the situation with brown energy rising, and I think it's the IDR reports, as it called, brown energy rising and solar and storage on a massive decline at the same time. I really hope that can be explained to myself and explained to the public more, and those kind of statistics can work its way into how you'll be talking this spring and summer about projects. I can't remember the name of it's the IDR reports, I think. You gave the same report in December. And so just thank you that you're providing this factual information. I hope you can continue to provide the public with this sort of need, and you can respond to my letter writing in formal terms. I'm trying to be formal myself about what to expect in the coming years and how we work that economically and prepare ourselves as local communities for possible future events. Thank you.
Thank you, Blair. Audrey?
Thank you. Thank you. This is Audrey Chinose, East Bay Clean Power Alliance. I wanted to speak to the item of the so-called higher energy costs that cause this greater than expected expenditure. So your explanation is energy costs, the heat wave, basis spread. I'm not sure, I don't know what that means, so that would be nice to clarify, but that's a minor point. And the third was CAISO unbalanced charges. A number of us have been involved in sort of speaking to a measure that the CPUC considered last week, and that was sort of temporary procurement by the IOUs for the next heat wave, expected heat wave in the summer. And a lot of us are quite aware that the root causes found for that, the price spikes, I mean, the emergency conditions and the price spikes were not as the root cause analysis stated. It is not a supply problem. It is really more due to CAISO market rules and regulations and practices. And so I really hope that staff is aware of this background, and it really isn't right to ascribe the unexpected expenditures to heat wave. I mean, they and I refer to Loretta Lynch and a lot of the other people who have researched this problem. It really goes down to really poor market forecasts, information management and communication, and other market processes that CAISO has to reform. So I hope you don't, I think you're perpetuating a circumstance that is really not accurate in my opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Audrey. And I just want to be doubly sure there. I think what you're saying is, if asked about the cost of energy, you think it's probably more precise to not ascribe it directly just to heat, but there's other CAISO and other issues at play. And it sounds like your preference is to put forward that message. Do I have that right? Adrian, can you unblock her again?
Yes, I've unmuted.
Yes or no?
Okay. Okay, I just unmuted. Thank you. Thanks for the clarification, Mary. I wonder how much the staff is aware that those price spikes that caused such unusual expenditure for EBCE is not due to specifically to the heat wave, lack of preparedness. There's a lot of I have to apologize for my lack of command of the terminology, but there were exports when there were lots of exports when we really needed that energy. And
so, hey, Audrey, I
yes.
think I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, I think what you're saying is you would prefer a different message, and you're saying that you think that different message is something that you're hoping staff is aware of, and I am.
Yes.
We can follow up on that for a different, but I think
Yes.
what you're saying, it's a different message is what you'd like to hear. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mary. Yes, exactly.
Okay, great. Thank you. Do we have any more public comment?
We do not have any more public comment.
Great, thank you. And So we've already talked to our CAC members. Cynthia, I see your hand is up. Is that a leftover?
That's a leftover. Let me see if I can
Okay.
take it down. Yes, I'll lower
That's
my
fine.
hand. Thank you.
So thank you all. We're going to move on to item C7 in our agenda, which is, again, it's an informational item. It's a policy on member request to change the default product for certain customers. And so this is information just so the CAC members are aware of how the board members are going to request this. Who's presenting on this? Annie.
Hi, good evening. This is Annie Henderson with East Bay Community Energy. Just to be clear on this item, it's also going to the board as informational because it is a proposed policy. And this really all was triggered by a decision made by the city of Dublin. They have voted to request our board to permit a change in their default product just for their residential customers to Renewable 100 with exemptions for CARE, FARA, and medical baseline customers. So as we started to draft a report to bring that request to our board, we realized we needed an actual process for other members, especially now that we have 15 members. We needed a process for everyone to follow in making similar, this is something we have heard some cities talk about. It's also a potential given that Brilliant 100 does close at the end of this calendar year. And so we know Albany and Hayward will be looking to decide what they want their new default to be. So I think that covers some of the background here. Again, Dublin made this decision at a local level in January. They cannot, in and of themselves as a city council, make this change. It needs to be approved by our boards because it's considered rate setting. So we're bringing this policy to the board here and highlighting the fact that it's triggered by Dublin, but we'll come back in March and ask the board to approve a policy. Perhaps it'll be revised based on feedback, and also to approve Dublin's decision. Adrian, do you mind going to the next page of the staff report? I also want to note that for us, this is the first time we have ever had a city request to change the default product post-enrollment. So many of you have been on the CAC since that time or are aware that the cities of Albany and Hayward and Piedmont all selected a product other than Bright Choice as their initial enrollment product. But everyone since the time we've enrolled our original cities has remained on the product which they were initially enrolled on for their local customers. So this is the first time we're seeing a city say, okay, you've been serving these customers for 2 years, now we want to change it. So we looked to some of our other CCA colleagues to see where this had occurred. It's only happened in Clean Power Alliance, which serves primarily, LA County and its many, many cities. Being such a large JPA, the number of members they had a policy outlined, which we both consulted with CPA, the executive director, and staff. Just looked at it to see, did this make sense for EBCE, and felt that a lot of it was very applicable. And so a lot of this policy kind of directly mirrors what they put forward. And they have already, so they had some of their members make votes back in 2019, which that change was then implemented in October 2020. And their policy is they'll only make this change once a year. It's always in October. So they do have some more coming up in this upcoming October. But what was fortunate for us, in my opinion, is that we could look at two, Sierra Madre, I believe, was one, and Malibu was the other. Malibu having a lot more sort of outreach and press around it to see, what did CPA do in changing this default? What kind of outreach was done, and what was the impact on customer enrollment? And I think that is always something that we're concerned about is that making this kind of wholesale change will drive opt-outs. And in the end, they saw a very, I think, kind of small opt-out. So about 0.5% of customers did opt out as a result of this, and we're just talking about residential. These two cities did both commercial and residential, but CPA reported residential and commercial separately. So these numbers are just residential, which is directly applicable to Dublin. They did see a number of who actively selected to remain basically on the service they're at. In both cases, the cities were choosing to go to a full renewable product, much like Dublin. And about 3% of their customers said, nope, we want to stay. We want, a discount or no price increase, which I think, that's the whole point of community choice, is that cities and our customers get to have a choice. So that seemed like actually really great results looking at the city of Malibu and Sierra Madre. So what we have proposed here in the policy is that we would set 2 dates on which we would implement, one of these default product changes. So we would do it in March or October. And in each case, our board would have to approve such a request 6 months in advance. And that 6 months is, well, first I should say we selected March and October based primarily on the lens of the customer experience. Those are times when you're either we have these new spring rates, which are low, or you're getting back onto winter rates, which are also lower. So we wanted to avoid having customers go through this transition in the summer months, especially when you start to think about our East County residents like Dublin, where you might see higher electricity use in those warmer months due to air conditioning or fans or what have you. And the rates in the rate schedule are higher. So we said, okay, we will allow, or what we're proposing is that we can facilitate this for cities whose request is approved by the board in either March or October, so that we feel that's the better customer experience. And we need that 6 months notice in order to make the appropriate changes to our procurement plan, to change any sort of system updates, so operational adjustments, and then to do customer notification to plan and get that out. So let's see, we're saying 6 months, we're saying twice a year. We are asking that this only occurs per JPA member once every 2 years. So we don't want to make a change and then like in the next cycle, change again. It's just too much change for a customer. So we've asked that this only happen, but that's per JPA member. So we're not saying we're only going to do this every 2 years. It's just when we implement for Dublin, not going to change it again for another 2 years, barring any change where we suddenly only have one product because it's all renewable 100 or something like this, which would be amazing. The other thing is that we are in the policy suggesting that 2 customer notifications be sent as part of this transition, and that they be co-branded with the city. So it will say the city of Dublin and EBCE, or something like the city of Dublin has decided to pursue its greenhouse gas emission goals, or something like this, and have their seal on there. Again, that's something CPA, and I think that really helps to communicate to customers that it's not this perhaps unfamiliar entity doing this to them. It was part of their local city plan and discussion and part of the public process. We are in that the costs for the first change would be absorbed by the agency. So the cost for notification and the cost for operational adjustments would be absorbed by the agency for the first request. If there is a second request, which would be 2 years later, then those costs would be passed to the JPA member. Adrian, if you want to go to the next page, I think that is pretty much the summary. Yes. So, fiscal impact or financial impact is those initial costs to implement the change, a small amount of revenue loss due to a small increase in opt-out, and then any future costs would be passed on to the JPA member. And that really summarizes what we are proposing to the board. And again, it's discussion tomorrow, and then we would bring it back in March with any required revisions for their approval.
Thank you, Annie. I'm going to go to the public first this time, like normal. Do we have any public speakers on this item, Adrian?
Blair has his hand raised. I can allow him to speak.
Okay, thank you, Blair.
Hi, thank you for this item. Thank you for trying to clarify with the last public comment from Audrey, I think her name is. That was really helpful to me because I think she really has hit upon what we're trying to work towards as community energy. It's really to address how to shape our future in really good terms and to find ways to work through previous years of habits and bad practices and how to better develop those practices. And with this item, it's important that, as you're addressing issues, me being from San Jose, that we're looking for, it sounds something's nice, people are trusting something right now. And I hope we can learn to develop that trust instead of letting it just flatten out into a bureaucratic mess that we're always in. I hope we work on a really, focused direction in the next few years. And I think we can. And I think that focused direction has to be renewables, and it has to be the ideas of addressing how to step back from nuclear and really take the steps to do that. And I think we can do that a lot in the next couple of years. And I think that can still be a goal, and we don't have to, give up on that. I gave you in my previous words about IPR reports of, well, I don't know if I quite said of the year 2023, that I feel is an important pivotal year that will really decide our future. And to prepare for that year now with really good terms, I think can set us up for a continuation of good practices after 2023. And it's important to maintain those good practices instead of just falling back on same old. And I just hope we can do that. And that's going to be kind of my job and role. And what Audrey said was just awesome. It just totally describes how to do that, how we can do that right now. So thank you for that. And thank you for this item, how to explain, to further explain to people, good practices and the future of community energy as a really positive, hopeful thing. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Blair. Hey, I want to follow up really quickly. I have one quick question for you. Can you please let me know if you are an EBCE constituent, in the sense like, are you a EBCE customer? And Adrian, can you take him off mute?
I am trying to take him off mute.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, me, Blair?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I live in Fremont, but I'm not a EBCE customer.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other public speakers? Nope.
There are no other public speakers.
Okay. CAC members, any comments, thoughts, questions? And Adrian, can you go back to where we don't see your, thank you. Hands raised. Did I hear Cynthia? Did you have a question?
Yes, I did. I'm trying to raise my hand. Okay.
That's fine. I heard you.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. Thank you. Annie, I thought this was a very well done proposed policy. What I want to ask you has an example. When you send out the notice let's say to the city of Dublin, when that window is open and, after after the JPA votes on this, of course. And let's say a customer who was not FARA or, in the low income bracket, but, a customer wants to opt out of Renewable 100. Does that mean because the city of Dublin has opted up all their customer, that residential customer would need to leave Community Choice, or could they opt for Bright Choice? Has an example. What does opt out mean? I guess.
Those are great questions. So Dublin retains the option for Bright Choice for its customers. So if and when the time comes when we do make this default product change for residential customers, and someone receives the notification and they say, well, I'm not able to pay more. They can go in and opt down to Bright Choice. So that option is still there for them. I will also say that any residential customer who has taken the proactive selection to move to Brilliant 100 back when that was open, they're going to stay on Brilliant 100. We're not, because if we move them to Renewable 100, they lose that option. So they'll just stay on Brilliant 100, still carbon free. That's great. When we do the default to Renewable 100, residential customers can still opt down, and that's a functionality that's supported via web form, IVR, or call center. So lots of ways to continue to do that.
So just that last piece. So you're saying that a customer, let's say we're going to use the city of Dublin, so they could opt down to Brilliant 100 also. Did I hear you correctly?
No, because that's closed to new customers in our existing service territory. So, sorry, I probably confused that point. There are a handful of residential customers in Dublin currently on Brilliant 100. They're just going to stay where they are.
Oh, I see.
Because we don't want to, yeah.
Okay. They've already selected Brilliant 100. Okay.
Right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Do we have any other comments from board committee members? Seeing no hands, I'm going to move us on to our last item of the day. Thank you very much, Ann. Net energy metering policy update. This is also an informational item for us. Who's presenting on this one tonight?
Kelly, I believe we. No.
We have JP.
This is JP. Yeah, I'm going to be presenting on this. All right, great. So tonight we'll be talking about a proposal to change our net energy metering policy. So this is an informational item for the board. We took this to the executive committee last month and wanted to walk the community advisory committee through the proposed changes. If we go to the next slide, Adrian. Thanks. So this is a quick summary slide on the differences between EBCE's current net metering program and PG&E's in broad strokes. So there's some similarities and a couple of differences. The similarities between the EBCE net metering program and PG&E's is that both programs accrue credits on retail rates. So basically when a customer is using electricity and producing a little bit of extra electricity, they are accrued in the same manner for both EBCE and PG&E. And then there is a cash out, essentially paying a customer for net surplus that is somewhat different between EBCE and PG&E. We pay out at a slightly higher rate. And then one of the main differences between the two programs is that PG&E accrues the credits month by month and rolls them up over the course of the year. And any debt, so any payments that are in excess of what a solar system produces is accrued over the course of the year for PG&E, and then PG&E does an annual true up with the customer, whereas EBCE trues up each month and bills a customer for the debt. If the customer still owes money, we bill them at the end of each month, which is one of the differences between EBCE's NEM program and PG&E's NEM program. And that difference between monthly and annual true-up is not something we are proposing to change at this point, but just wanted to provide a high level on some of the similarities and differences between the two programs. Next slide, please. So our current NEM policy, and NEM stands for net energy metering. This is for customers with solar systems. We have 3 different programs, and the programs are based on the customer type as well as when a customer has interconnected, so plugged in their solar system. And so having 3 programs is fairly confusing, and it's quite operationally complex for our customers. And in addition to that, we are compensating customers for net excess generation, so the generation above and beyond what their home or business consumes at such a rate, at such a level that it's costs EBCE and our customers about $600,000 a year more than if we were simply equivalent to PG&E's NEM policy. And through some work that we've done, we've identified and determined that the customers are not actually installing more solar because of this program. They're not even really aware of it. And so that's something that we are attempting to rectify with this proposed change. Next slide, please. So this is a further explanation from the last slide. So we have these three customer types, the column on the left. We have our existing NEM customers, and those are the net energy metering customers who essentially already had a solar system prior to EBCE enrollment in the middle of 2018. And so that's one bucket of customers, is existing NEM customers. And then we have our new NEM customers. Those are customers who have installed their solar systems after EBCE basically announced enrollment for residential customers. And then we also have an additional program for our low income and municipal. So basically our care customers and our city accounts have a different program where if they install the solar system after enrollment, after June 1st of 2018, then they were compensated with an additional penny per kilowatt hour for excess generation. So those are the customer types and the dates that they came on board. And then there's a slightly different process based on each of these customer types. So all of our customers, whether they're existing, new NEM, or low income, are getting a settlement at the end of each month at retail rates, meaning that they are compensated for any additional solar that they produce above and beyond what they consume at the cost that EBCE charges those customers for retail generation. And low income and municipal net energy metering customers get that retail rate plus a penny per kilowatt hour. And then the last column now, the annual settlement, is at the end of the year. Any excess generation for existing NEM customers is compensated at what's called NSC, and I'm spacing what that is, but it's net surplus, something like that. It's basically the kind of the wholesale rate. And then our new NEM customers are compensated at the greater of our retail rate, or NSC. And then low income and municipal NEM customers are compensated at the retail rate plus a penny per kilowatt hour. And a big difference here is that our retail rate is significantly higher than NSC. So PG&E is compensating at NSC, the wholesale rate, and we are compensating for excess at the retail rate. So that's kind of one of the main differences there. And then we also complete a sweep in April, which ensures that any customers with us are as good as they would be with PG&E. And there's some very kind of intricate nuance about how credits are moved from month to month, such that even though we are compensating at a higher rate than PG&E, it is possible through this that a few customers could be worse off than they would be with PG&E. And so we do an analysis, which is pretty operationally complex at the end of each year, to confirm and true up customers if they have the potential to be compensated at a lower rate than they would have if they stayed with PG&E. And that's something we are planning to continue. We want to make sure that all of our customers are at least as good off as they would be with PG&E. Next slide, please. So our recommendations are this, and we'll be going into quite a bit of detail on these over the course of this presentation. The first is that we complete our April 2021 cash out and true up under the existing policy. So all the customers that are currently enrolled through April of 2021, they'll get the retail compensation according to the policy that they are currently on. And then the goal is that after that April 21 cash out, we would move all of our customers to a singular net energy metering policy, which we are now dubbing the very cool name of 2021 NEM. So we're basically consolidating the existing and the new customers into a single NEM category. And we would still propose to maintain that additional incentive for low income and municipal customers. So 3 programs goes down to 2. And then we would propose to close enrollments into the new enrollments into our low income and municipal program, because we now, after a couple of years of operation, have programs available for solar and storage for low income and municipal accounts. And so we really want to encourage customers to participate in those programs. And we think those are a better mechanism to drive participation and outcomes than this NEM policy. And we'll discuss that in a little bit more detail. And then all new communities and new customers will go into the 2021 NEM policy. So that's the sum of the recommendations, and we'll explain why we have those recommendations as we go. Next slide, please. So here's the timeline. So we started in 2018. You can see along the color-coded bars on the right, we've had these 3 different programs for existing new NEM customers and new NEM low-income and muni customers basically through 2021. And our proposal is that we continue this until April of 2021, and then we consolidate these 3 programs into 2, one for all customers, excluding low income and municipal, and then we maintain the grandfathered existing set of low income and municipal customers in that second program. Next slide, please. So I think let's go on to the next slide. Talk talked a little bit about this one already. So in order to get some confidence that this was the right move, we did want to understand whether or not this existing program for new EBCE customers, so since enrollment, was actually increasing solar deployments in EBCE's territory. So we're paying about $600,000 a year extra for this NEM program. And the question is that actually resulting in more solar being deployed on residential, commercial, and municipal accounts in EBCE's territory? And so we basically looked at this through a few different lenses. The first lens is, have solar installations, sales and installations been increasing, or did they see any increase since EBCE's enrollment? So the chart, the figure here on the upper right is the installations per 1,000 residents in 5 different cities. So we looked at a couple of the cities that are EBCE customers, so Dublin and Livermore. And then we looked at 3 cities, the 3 new cities, Newark, Pleasanton, and Tracy. So all these are in the same region, have some similar characteristics environment-wise. So one would expect that if this NEM policy was increasing deployments, then in the gray area here, which is the timeline by which when EBCE launched, you would see some different trajectory in EBCE's cities compared to these other cities. And there's a lot of volatility in the market, but there's no real big increasing trend in Dublin and Livermore that is different from the trends in non-EBCE cities, Newark, Pleasanton, and Tracy. So not really seeing installations of solar at an increased rate due to our NEM policy. But we didn't only look at that, we also wanted to talk to our customers. So we issued a survey to solar customers who had purchased and installed their system after EBCE's launch. And we asked customers if having this NEM policy of compensating it at retail, customers were aware of it and if it made any impact on their decision to purchase solar. And the bar chart here on the bottom right indicates that the vast majority of customers didn't have any impact, or they didn't take EBCE's NEM policy into account when they installed solar. 89% said no impact, 2% said it actually reduced their interest, and then 9% said it did increase their interest. So a small portion indicated that it increased their interest, but the vast majority said that it didn't have an impact. And then we also talked to one of the quoting tools for solar that is pretty widely used by solar installers, called Energy Toolbase. And we asked them if they factored for this kind of nuanced detail about how EBCE is compensating customers based on monthly retail true-ups for net excess. And they said, no, that the functionality in the model is actually kind of more mimics PG&E than it does EBCE. So the financial kind of estimates of value for solar based on this quoting tool is not even really kind of factoring for this additional compensation that our current NEM policy provides. So, the evidence is indicating that that this current NEM policy is not increasing solar. It's not having the benefit that we would expect, or not that we would expect, but I think was contemplated when we released the policy. So that means that it makes sense to reevaluate. If you can go to the next slide, please. So we do have our existing low-income and municipal NEM policy. This is the policy that pays an additional penny per kilowatt hour for net excess generation to low income and municipal accounts. We are not planning to close this policy. Those customers that are low income and municipal that enrolled and installed the solar system during this time frame up through April of 2021, we would not propose to take that away. But we do have our resilient home program. We're running our critical facility and municipal solar procurement programs. And so we have other things to offer our customers, which we think will deploy more solar and add more value. And so we will encourage our cities and low-income customers to participate in those programs. So going forward, we would be closing this to new applicants and new enrollments, but we would maintain it for our existing customers. And there is some participation, a few hundred, about 500 low-income customers, about 10 municipal customers. And so that's something that we offered. And for those customers in specific, we do not propose to change that policy. Next slide, please. So the cost of that program is about $10,000 a year. This is based on the current customers, the current accounts for which we have 12 months of usage. So in total, we expect the ongoing cost of this program to be about $30,000, which is not nothing. But considering this is a vulnerable population in times right now, we propose to leave this program in place. Next slide, please. So the financial impacts of the proposed changes are pretty substantial. So this bar chart here is based on an analysis of the cash out, the 2021 cash out for customers for whom we have 12 months of data. So when we enrolled our NEM customers, we've enrolled them on a rolling basis. And so we don't actually have a full year's worth of data for all of our customers. We have it for about a third of our customers. So this analysis was based on the customers that we have a full year's worth of data for. Trying to do this analysis on partial year data is very tricky and suspect because of the seasonal variations and true ups because of solar production and usage. So we just did this analysis on about a third of our customers. That results in about a $200,000 savings based on this initial assessment for those customers that we have 12 months of usage. So when we multiply that by 3, we get about $600,000 in payments that we are now making to customers above and beyond what they would have been getting with PG&E. So that $600,000 is not incentivizing additional solar. Again, we think this is something that we need to reevaluate and change because it's not having the impact I think initially intended. Next slide, please. So yeah, the current cash out as expressed, about $245,000. And then we will do this cash out. And that will have that will cost some money to just make sure that customers are at least as good off as they would be with PG&E. So there's a net savings of about $200,000 based on the customers we have data for. Once we true that up to all customers, it's about a $600,000 savings. And then you ask, okay, so what are you gonna do with that money? It's about $600,000 a year and growing. Remember, this amount is based on our current customer base, not new enrollments and not new sales. We sell about 6,000 solar systems are installed in EBCE's territory each year. So this additional expense would continue to grow at a good clip So this kind of $600,000 savings is what we expect from, from current customers' accounts and enrollments. And so as we do our budgeting policy and budgeting planning each year, we'll be making organizational decisions about, where this money, these savings can go, whether it's, it's programs or it's customer discounts or our reserves. There's a variety of, key priorities that the organization balances each budgeting cycle. So I think that's it, Adrian, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, JP. Adrian, do we have any public comment on this item? It's like we have.
Yes, we do.
3.
We have 2 speakers signed up for the public speakers list, Jessica Tovar and Blair Beekman. I am going to unmute Jessica Tovar now.
Hi, folks. Jessica Tovar, East Bay Clean Power Alliance. We have no problem with decreasing the compensation for the net energy metering customers to lower net surplus compensation, but we're very concerned about closing a program to enrollment by new low-income customers that represents a loss of a program that's been specifically designed to address equity, because the bulk of the local development business plan already heavily favors middle and upper incomes. We really are concerned and would like to see this money earmarked, a significant portion of the savings to EBCE from these changes to go to programs that specifically target to benefit low-income communities of color, specifically environmental justice communities. So we are concerned about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Adrian, who's next?
Blair Beekman, I am going to unmute him now.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thank you for the item. It had a very good finish to it. It offered a bit of hope that you actually are trying to figure out what the future can hold for low income and just everyday people to take advantage, to be able to have this program. And it does sound like you're interested. You did say, midway through what the previous speaker just mentioned, that you'll be closing the program in April, and therefore, closing it to new people. And that has to be a burden to consider. And I think it was with the Bright Choice, the decisions of the fall, that Hayward, I think, came through. They were going to initially not offer to new customers the package for this year, and then they changed their mind or something, or was it Hayward? But I know, cities have made some major changes. So with the package for this year. So good luck in how you're going to have to resolve this issue and work on it. Being from San Jose, they had their community energy meeting last week that I attended, and they'll be making a big push towards procurement as a local level. They are starting those efforts, and it's nice to hear and nice to see. But interestingly, it seemed to avoid just the everyday public. And you nicely mentioned that here, and what just everything that entails in working out our energy future. And so thank you for the efforts here. It's always really nice just to learn how you guys think and work. And hopefully we can improve on the subject and bring these things to San Jose, actually. Because I do a lot of work there. So to conclude, I don't know if this is quite applicable, but when with your NEPS reports, or you're reporting that, do you need to collect data from smart technology? Is a question for me, and I don't know if this is applicable here, but if you do have to collect metering from smart data stuff, I hope you feel it's okay to call it smart data and you'll be using smart technology. And we're not so cool and sophisticated to not use those terms anymore. I think they're nice terms to understand where things are at and what we're doing with ourselves. And to completely ignore using those terms is just acting a little bit too cool, I feel. I don't know how to better talk about it. It needs to be a bit of an open subject still. And thank you for your time.
Claire. So I see two more hands raised. Adrian?
Yes, we have two hands raised from Vaughn and Audrey Ichinosi. I'm unmuting Vaughn now.
Thank you.
I'm assuming you can hear me. I'm going to be a new customer, I guess, starting in April when Pleasanton joins in, if I understand the way it's working. I've had panels on my roof since 2000, which is way before your 2018. So I'm assuming I'm going to be a new NEM, the new 2021. The process of charging for the down month, or the months that I owe, and then paying me back after, and when you accrue the year, sounds kind of silly. There should be some mechanism, I would think, where once the true comes around, you can keep like 3 months worth to your own advantage, and then have that cover instead of on a per month basis, the way I understand it. Because I repowered my panels back in 2018, and the first year was $850 over, and the second, this last year, this last November was $660, and that down is because of the, wasn't because of the high temperature, it was because the smoke was blocking the panels. I had to wash them a couple of times, and it made a little bit of difference, but not enough to compensate. But I'm not used to paying for power because I only pay the $10 that I've been paying for, or $541 when I first started 20 years ago. But having to pay and then having you pay me back doesn't sound like that's an efficient way to do it. There should be some way to get credit for the overproduction that was earlier in the year, because obviously the overproduction is going to be in the spring, and the underproduction is going to be probably January, February, March timeframe, or December, January, February. That, like I said, that part of it doesn't sound like it's taking into consideration all options, although most people haven't had panels on the roof for 20 years. When I first started, there's only 3 or 4 in Pleasanton. As an operational note for this meeting, I find out if I log in to the Zoom 15 or 20 minutes early, it doesn't wake up when you finally turn it on. I have to wait until a minute after 6 to be able to log in to get it to wake up. I don't have that problem with other people, but I would have some questions about where would we send questions about the conglomeration of the community actions together and what they're going to be planning in the future, and also long-term, long duration storage. Batteries in everybody's homes and stuff, I don't think is a very good idea, especially if it's lithium, when we're going to run out of lithium if we want to accommodate the transportation market. So I have some questions. Who should I contact?
Thank you, Vaughn. And I am going to ask Nick to say, I think we have an info@ebce.org where these types of questions can be sent.
Yep, I think that would be right. You can also send it to COB, clerk of the board, and somebody from our staff will follow up.
And and the actual address is cob@ebce.org.
Yep.
So it stands for clerk of the board. So those are 2 options that you can email, and staff will get back to you. Thank you, Vaughn.
Great.
Audrey.
Unmuted, Audrey.
Thank you. I'm unmuted. Thank you. I I wanted to say that it's a great thing that the staff is always looking for savings and efficiencies. I really think EBC is the kind of little engine that could. And I know there's going to be a lot of discussion about how best to use the proposed savings. But I do have a suggestion. I'm not so sure actually, well, let me go on. Since the NEM policy by itself may not increase or encourage increased installation of rooftop solar, I think it should be used to strengthen the whole, what is it, the new program that is trying to deploy panels and battery to renters, for renters. I think that's a big deficit for us that all of our policies tend to favor, people who have homes, who have some means, who have assets. And I think all of the reasons that JP cited, evidence that he cited to conclude that, our NEM policy is not promoting installation of solar shows that those who have adopted and will adopt solar are pretty much the people who can afford it. So I think any savings that we have should go to strengthen that. I think it's called Efficient Homes. I forget what program you call it, but there's so many renters in, I think it's like 44% of the households in California are renters, but at least in that ballpark. And so we should be bringing the benefits of solar to them. And I hope that's something that you will consider. Thanks.
Thank you, Audrey. Adrian, I see no other hands raised. Do we have any other public comment on your list?
We have no more public comment.
Great. So I'm going to move to the committee now. Anna Olivia.
Thank you very much for the presentation and for the attention to detail. I have a few questions, but also a clarification. When we spent all that time developing a really progressive and a model NEM policy, we never suggested that a single adder was going to encourage solar growth. What we had developed and what was approved and was going to be implemented was a series of adders. So there was a labor adder, there was a whole bunch of things. And the only reason we were told that it didn't go in initially is because we were playing with what the exact amounts were going to be. Was it going to be a half a cent? Was it going to be whole? Then there was going to be a cap on how much could be on each time. So there was going to be a series of adders that could incent the type of development that we want, especially in development. So when people are looking at making low income, below market rate, affordable housing, that there is an incentive for developers at that point. We're also looking at ways to maintain existing customers. So I understand that the first step hasn't been incenting local solar development, but it is possible that if the entirety of the program were implemented, that it could. I understand that staff may be saying that that's not feasible at this time, and I respect the expertise of our staff. I'm really opposed to closing new low income to the programs to new low income customers. And I had a clarification. There was a slide and I don't see it, so it's kind of going off of memory, but it was like, we're going to close this, but we're going to encourage participation in municipal programs for low and moderate income customers or something like that. Like are those programs that we're running, or are they specific to municipalities? Can we make sure that this fund is being targeted specifically to equity issues? Like if we're cutting an equity program, we need to make sure that we're replacing it with equity measures. And just as a historic reminder, we also only implemented the very first part of that program. There was supposed to be additional things to incent construction, and not just what that first step that was done. We were going to get the other parts. So as clarification, where, like, can we make sure that money goes to equity-based programs, and have you looked at the other adders to try and incent the kind of development that we want specifically in development?
So what I'll say with regards to the cost savings is, that is something that we would expect to be taken up in the context of the budget setting for this next fiscal year, and these are exactly the kinds of topics that we think about when we set the budget for the next local development business plan year. But JP, jump on too.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we have programs that are now available and targeted towards both municipal accounts, which is our critical facility procurement that we are initiating, and we're certainly looking at our new communities as opportunities there. And then we also have our Resilient Home program, which has a priority target population of our CARE, FARA, medical baseline, and customers in disadvantaged communities and low-income communities. And we are pursuing an aggressive path on multifamily affordable housing with our partner there as well, which addresses some of Cynthia's or some of the concerns, I think, from the public comment around renters. So those are the programs that we have initiated that are delivering solar and storage solutions to those targeted customers. All of those are local by definition. They are within our service territory, and they are on homes and businesses and multifamily developments within EBCE's territory. I think the other thing to note with this current NEM program is that the current NEM program is only incentivizing at a higher rate net excess generation. So the generation over the course of the month that is above and beyond what that home uses. And so we're kind of paying for the extra generation that we are then buying at retail. And when we buy from the wholesale market, those are very low cost kilowatt hours that we are basically getting from solar already. It's already carbon free. And so, paying for that net excess generation is not really incentivizing even the types of solar deployments that we want to see, which are much bigger than the loads on the home or the business. So I think the programs that we have currently on offer, and we are obviously continuing to deploy new programs, and a lot of our programs have a focus on low income and care and medical baseline customers. And so, that's why we think that, since we have other programs that are targeting these customers that are for solar and storage, that's where we want to be directing our energy.
Thank you, JP. I'm going to move on to other committee members. Because Anna Olivia, it sounded like you had summarized. So Cynthia and then Monica. And then Anna Olivia, if you have any other comments after that, please leave your hand up. If not, get back down. Then we can come back to you. Thank you. Cynthia?
Yes, thank you. I just, I have a feel that we're moving a little bit too fast. You know, as we know, right now it's the middle of February. And I think the proposal is to implement this new policy in April. And you know, that's 6 weeks away. And I really think there needs to be, I know you mentioned a survey went out. I think there needs to be more public engagement, as in webinars, you know, and outreach to our customers. And in this, you would explain the other programs that you just mentioned also, besides the NIM policy. And also when you did your study, I believe it was more focused on South County. Did you outreach to the folks, you know, in North County also? And did that survey cover those customers? So and any savings that we if this program should stop, any savings I would recommend should go to the local business development for local development. That's where I think it should go. But I think before we change this, I think we need to do more robust public engagement, and not have just one webinar, but have maybe 3 webinars, one in South County, Mid County, and North County. I'm also right now opposed to the closing of this program to our low income customers. So I think we need to do more work on this policy, and more member, more customer engagement before we implement this. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Monica?
Yeah, so first off, thanks JP for this very informative report. I certainly support staff's recommendation. I've always felt that the policy that EBCE had overpaid NEM customers, and that overpayment resulted in a subsidy from one set of customers who don't participate in NEM to another set of customers. So I think this is a move in the right direction to kind of level the playing field. So I'm willing to make a motion if you would accept one right now, Mary.
We don't need a motion. This is an informational item only. It's
Yeah, I guess
informational.
the only thing that I might suggest as an addition to the recommendation, given what I've heard from others, is perhaps a request that staff return to the Community Advisory Committee or the board with a recommendation, or at least some information as to how the funds that were saved were allocated, if they went towards programs or towards a local business development implementation, or back into reserves to help keep our margins healthy.
Okay, thank you, Monica. I know I have a few questions. I have 3 very specific ones for you, JP. The NIM policy, assuming the 2021 NIM policy goes through, this rate will be specific to all EBCE and not able to be adjusted by JPA. Is that a correct assumption?
It will be, yes, specific to EBCE. I'm not sure what you mean by adjusted by JPA.
Well, that right now we have JPAs choosing to go on one, the 3 different value proposition rates.
Oh,
And NEM is just going to be NEM regardless.
yeah, the NEM, yeah, cities can just decide to go onto a particular rate, Brilliant 100, Bright Choice, or Renewable 100, but the NEM policy is the NEM policy across all customers.
That was my assumption. I just wanted to verify.
Uh-huh.
Second is this 2021 NEM. Anyone can join it. Low income can join it, right? It's not that they can't. It's just
Correct.
this other one that was probably a little bit more dollars in their pocket. It is changing, so moving forward, they would not be unable to join. It would just be, they'd be the same as anybody else. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Thirdly, can you please remind me how NEM is handled in rentals?
NEM is agnostic to rentals. If somebody rents and they pay their utility bill, whoever pays the utility bill either gets the benefit or pays the cost of net energy metering. So if a renter rents a single family residence and that residence has a solar system on it, and that customer pays their bill, which is often the case when somebody moves into a single family residence, then they're going to get the benefit of NEM on their utility bill. Now, a landlord might, list a house and say, there's a solar system on it, so your rent is a little bit more because you have lower cost utilities, but that's up between the renter and the owner of the house in a single family residence situation. In a multifamily residence situation, at least through the Resilient Home program that we are running, that goes through what's called virtual net energy metering. So you can have a large solar system on the top of a multifamily dwelling, and then the savings from that system through virtual net metering are spread amongst the meters throughout that dwelling. And so that's how the virtual net energy metering program runs when you have a solar system on a larger multifamily dwelling. I can't speak to the specifics of every system and the arrangements between landlords and units, but that's at least how we are working with Sunrun for the affordable housing program through Resilient Home that we are running with.
Great, thank you. So I have no other questions. Anybody else on the committee have any more comments? Hands up. If not, I'm going to move on. All right, seeing none, we're on item C9. This is when if any CAC member or staff have announcements, including request to place items on future CAC agendas. So committee members, any staff, any comments, announcements? Anna Olivia.
Hi, thanks so much. I just wanted to let folks know that my project was approved, and at next meeting, I'll be bringing a survey just to get your opinion. It is absolutely voluntary, but I will be bringing it to the next meeting, and I'd love to have a couple minutes on there just to explain it. And that's
great. So thank you, Anna Olivia. Hey, can you send me the survey and ahead of time before our next March meeting?
Yes, I'm still making it, or I would have.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah. Anybody else? Seeing no hands, I'm going to call this meeting adjourned at 8:05. Our next meeting is on a Monday, regular Monday time, March 15th, 6 p.m. Thank you all.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.